universe. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about the insane.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And here we are, episode 103.
103.
What's our topic?
This is nurturing your inner child.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I think it'll be good.
Got your tissues handy?
Yeah.
Good.
They were in here before I even told you why I was bringing them in here. But yeah, this was a heavy episode for me to put together. So if you've had some childhood trauma, I would say just be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
well,
good. We always keep them lighthearted.
Yeah.
We're not going to, nothing like that. So, anyways.
Before we do that, do you got anything from last week you want to share?
I do. So last week's episode was trust. And one of the responses that we got to this episode was from Jennifer. And she said, this was my favorite episode. I have read The Universe Has Your Back 3 times now. I firmly believe in this 1,000,000%. It's all about the energy we are putting out there. Gosh, I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
That's
for
awesome.
Sure. We had told you guys last week that we found a house.
Yes.
And we have the house. It is now our house.
Yay.
But our real estate agent listened to that episode, and it's cool because we just are getting to know her,
right?
And to see that she has the same kind of interest in this, it was funny to see how that went together.
Incredible.
But yeah, she really liked this episode too, and we were talking about that with her yesterday. So
yeah.
If you're listening again, Lana, hello,
and
thank you,
and thank you. Yes.
So
anyways,
much. Yeah, we really are very happy, and we'll talk more about that another time.
Yeah.
My Moldavite update I wanted to give. So I've been wearing it. I think I said last week I was still wearing it a few hours a day. It does make me really jittery. So I'm not a huge fan at this point. I'm not going to say it's something that I wake up and I go, oh, I need to put my Moldavite on. I have a black tourmaline that I feel some days that does good for me, and I have a selenite. And same with that. But so far, I will say the Moldavite, I don't feel like my energy matches it very well. Wow. As far as propelling you forward, I mean, our lives were moving forward to begin with. So
True.
It came in at a time where I wanted a push, but the push had already kind of started.
Yeah.
So I don't really know at this point.
Well, maybe hold on to it and try it again later.
I'm going to. I was actually going to go put it on for the show. Mm-hmm. And I walked back. I mean, this is not unusual for me. I walked to the back of the house, and I went, what did I walk back here for? And we're packed up for the most part. So right. I'm like, well, it can't be there's only a few things that it could be.
Right.
Didn't remember it all. And then I came back and looked at my notes, and I saw Moldavite. And I was like, oh, that's right. I was going to put it on. And then I heard, don't put it on. So I did not put it on, but I did want to send a shout out to the woman that made the necklace for me, because she's wonderful, and it is a beautiful necklace. And
really
if I remember, I will share it. Yeah. And I still plan to wear it. And like you said, try it again. It's just maybe right now my energy is just not matching it.
Yeah.
But the name of her business is Whimsically Hollowed Jewels, and you can find her on Instagram under that name. Her name is Erica. She's very sweet, and she custom makes jewelry with crystals.
Nice work, Erica. It's very pretty.
I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah, definitely. The next stone that I decide to get, I'll reach out to her and have me make one.
Yeah.
Have her make one for me of that too. So
cool.
Yeah. Let's see. And then I wanted to say to the people in our discussion group, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to put polls up. When I go to click on the option to make a poll question, It doesn't do anything. So I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping that'll be fixed. Maybe I was thinking this morning, maybe I just need to try on my computer instead of on my iPad or whatever.
Right.
So, but I wanted you guys to know that's why I haven't put anything up. So, and then the last thing I have before we move on is next week is our 2-year anniversary episode. Yay!
Exciting.
Yes, we're very excited. So we're going to do like we did last year, like a catching up with the Joneses and, Q&A and that kind of thing. So that I should be able to do without the need for poll questions. So keep an eye for that on our discussion group.
Cool.
Yep.
That'll be fun.
I think so. That's all I got for you.
Awesome. All right, then. Well, episode 103, Nurturing Your Inner Child.
Nurturing your inner child. This is something that I never really thought about until I started with the therapist that I've talked about. And she was the one that really started talking about this, your inner child, and that you need to talk to it and comfort it and tell it everything's okay. And I didn't really get it. And it was hard for me to do that work, but I've been doing it. I've been doing that inner child work. And then you mentioned we should do this episode, and you've brought it up a couple of times.
Right.
And I feel like this is next in line in this journey, is this your inner child, because there are a lot of things that we take with us from our childhood that we don't even realize. Mm-hmm. And most of those things are before puberty. So a lot of what we talk about, these are your younger years, your most impressionable years, the ones that, you don't really remember, but they are impressionable and they stick with you.
And I think it's part of, the shadow work kind of that
exactly
you were talking about in previous episodes, that you kind of got to get inside and maybe find out, based on some of the things that you do remember and maybe some things you don't remember, but you may through this process of shadow work in it, that you understand kind of what makes you tick, what doesn't, what sets you off, what doesn't.
Yes.
And there's a connection to those things, like why certain things do certain things to us.
Yep.
Because that happened probably at a young age. Some impression was left on you.
Yes.
And you're not exactly sure, but subconsciously it's there.
That's exactly right. And when I was putting this episode together, somewhere in my notes, I actually addressed that this does seem to go along with the shadow work, because it's work that we don't really realize maybe why we're doing it at first. But they absolutely do go together, because a lot of your shadow comes from your childhood. So maybe even doing the inner child work first,
Right.
I don't know, but this is definitely, I think, a journey.
I was introduced to the concept at a relatively young age, because I had issues growing up, in situations that I was in. So fortunately, my parents were smart enough to let me do that and go in and talk about it,
Yes.
And that helped me. It brought that to the forefront of my consciousness of like, oh, even though, how we all, even as adults, a lot of us go, God, my body just aches, I'm getting old. But inside, I still feel like this young person, you know?
So weird.
And when you become a parent of a teenager, it's like a lot of me totally relates to her as a teenager. However, there is a generation gap, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's part of that, I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's just, it's a concept that I'm grateful that I got introduced to and I recognize, because it is important. We all have a story.
Yeah.
And each one of us, something's happened to us.
Yes.
Even in older age, but now in, younger age.
Yes.
But more so in the younger age is what we're talking about. I'm sorry.
I think that's important to point out, because a lot of people think that maybe they had an abnormal childhood because, they suffered from whatever incidents or abuse or whatever they suffered from. But I'll tell you that in my life so far, I've only met maybe one or two people that claim to not have childhood trauma.
Right.
Most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
For one form or another, we've experienced something that at some point hurt that child inside of us, and we haven't let it go.
Right. Maybe you lived in a great family, but you were bullied at school.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe you weren't bullied at school, but home life wasn't always that great.
Yeah.
There's so many, different forms of it. I think that in different ways, because you're a child, you don't understand how the world works. And in actuality, to be kind of frank, how cruel the world is.
Yeah, it's true.
How cruel people can be when they're in these bodies.
Yes.
How do you explain that to a child? Well, you're going to kind of jack them up if you just tell them right off the get-go that, you're screwed, don't even bother. Well, that's not what we want to put into kids. We want them to think this is a world of possibilities.
Yes. Even things like TV shows can leave a big impression. Like, I remember watching this show with my grandparents about there was a shooting at like a clock tower at a university or something.
I vaguely remember that, yeah.
So I don't know. I was pretty young, and I remember seeing this, and this was like my first introduction to just how cruel the world was.
That was back east somewhere.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was like early 80s. I think I was very young. And, you know, it left a huge impression on me. It did. And you don't realize that those types of things can, because if you don't explain them to your children correctly in a children type of way, they're not going to be able to understand it. And really, how do you, like you said, how do you explain? Some guy got mad. Yeah. He went up to the top of a tower and he started shooting at people because I remember my grandma telling me once we were in the car and I had a drink and it had a straw and I was drinking it, and this cop pulled up behind us and she started telling me how some things are illegal to drink while you're in the car. And she said alcohol. Well, I didn't know if I was drinking alcohol or not because I was like 5.
It tastes like orange drink.
Yeah, I was scared. I put my drink down. Like, I don't want this cop to think that I'm breaking the law. Like, I have the... Yeah. But she didn't know that I was thinking that. You know what I mean? So these types of things, like, we have to explain better to our children.
Right.
Like, you don't have to worry about this. This isn't something that you'll come in contact with a year later, you know?
But however, you know, if it's a first-time experience for the parent, how does the parent explain that? You know, I remember as a kid, a really young age, this is probably even before that clock tower incident, that there was a man that went into a McDonald's in San Diego. Mm-hmm. This was like maybe late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. And did something similar, just shooting people. And I was like, what? You know, I was a big fan of McDonald's, man. I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Hamburger, you know, Ronald and Grimace and the boys. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking he went in there and killed all those people. And the characters.
Right.
You know, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I see the commercials and I think that they're there.
Right.
Even if you don't get to see them when you're there, they're there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when your parents trying to explain to you, like, no, but they don't really even know. Like, that's something they're not even used to. Like, what? I can't, how do I tell my kid why?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so these types of things that we maybe don't even realize it affected us, they do. Mm-hmm. They can bring up, you know, if you have a trigger from that moment, that trigger happens and you think about that and it just, you know, gives you anxiety or whatever. Well, that right there is some inner child work that maybe, you know, facing would help. Mm-hmm. So anyways, let's give the definition of inner child.
Yeah.
So what is an inner child? The inner child is an individual's childlike aspects. It includes what a person learned as a child before puberty. Your inner child is the part of your personality that still feels like a child. Our unmet needs and suppressed emotions, as well as innocence, creativity, and joy, are still within us. We hear a lot of times people saying, like, I'm channeling my inner child. That's like one of those quotes you're a lot like, you know, you're at the park with your kids, you're playing, you're on the swing yourself. I'm channeling my inner child, you know. So it's not all bad.
No.
There's a lot of good to it, too. It's just, you know, making it a healthy inner child instead of
And that's a
bad.
big kind of, that's one of the hugest rewards of being a parent is you get to sort of live vicariously through them, through their eyes again.
Right.
You know, when Christmas comes around and birthdays and, you know, all those things that made your eyes real wide when you were little, and they lose their, you know, their appeal, not, you know, completely, but as you get older, it wears off, you know, and now you see it again and you're like, oh my God, how exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. A lot of nostalgia. So our earliest relationships served as models for how we expect the world to work. So when you're a kid and you have these relationships or you see these things, this is what you expect from the world. And then that's what we anticipate, how we anticipate others will behave and treat us. That's why a lot of abuse victims, they seek other people that are like that. Like somebody that may have been abused as a child, like a woman, you know, she might find a man that will do the same thing because that's what she knows. And that's just what some of these experiences can do to us.
And you know, children that grew up maybe witnessing violence, even if it didn't particularly happen to them. Yeah. They grow up seeing that and thinking that is some sort of norm. Yeah. And then carrying it on.
Yeah. So this is like a form of subconscious work, doing this work with your inner child, okay? It's you kind of have to take the lead of your subconscious, so to speak. It's about exploring our true feelings and the true parts of us that we may have labeled inappropriate or even suppressed. That's something that I'm starting to learn. I'm one of those people that, like, I don't know, I go, suppressed memories? Oh, I don't have that. Why would I have that? I don't remember. How can I have suppressed memories if I don't remember them? Well, that's exactly what suppressed memories are, stupid.
Right.
You know, so, but I have them. I know because now in this inner child work, they start to come up.
Right.
And so there's things that we do, things about ourselves that we might even go like, I don't know why I'm like this. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And then these suppressed memories start coming up and you're like, oh,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
So it's important work. It's scary.
Yeah, it's heavy, it's emotional. You know, you have to face certain things that a lot of us would like to brush under the rug and suppress.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is as you get older, that becomes harder. And then that's adding extra anxiety and stress to you. And then that can turn into health issues.
Yes, absolutely it can. It can turn into a lot of issues. It can really lead to a whole plethora of things. It's this kind of work, it may seem like it's nothing, but it really is important. I wish I would have known this earlier because, like, I've always been the type of person, like, okay, I had a rough childhood, so big deal. It doesn't make me who I am. Well, okay, it doesn't. No. However, there are things that I'm still holding on to that I didn't realize I was holding on to. And through doing this inner child work, it's kind of helping me to understand myself better, understand what I'm going through in my own life, because I'm telling you what, if you haven't experienced it yet, life is going to give you as an adult a lot of the lessons that you haven't learned yet that you need to learn.
Right.
So I've been faced with a lot of things with Marina that, you know, I went through that now I'm seeing them through her, and and it's triggering these things with me. And so it's like forcing this inner child work and for me to address it. And it's tough, man.
It's hard.
It is really hard. Yeah. It's like, I think when I started working with a therapist on it, I was like, nope, I do not have time for this right now.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, I can't. It's really, it brings up a lot of things. But once you can really address what has actually happened, what the situations are, then you can start to heal from them.
Right. You know, and I'm blessed in the sense that my parents, who are all still living, thank God, any issues or trauma that I've had in my life, I've been able to express and talk to them about.
Yes.
And have some sort of closure with it. You know, I mean, it's always still there. The memory's always still there. But it's definitely eased my PTSD, about it. Yeah. You know, it doesn't make it so intense when those memories come up. It's more like, oh yeah, I got to say how I felt and we moved on. Right. And it's okay. And not for everybody is that possible. No, it's not. It's tough when your parent isn't here and you can't do that. Yeah. So you really have to get in there and really nurture and just let your inner child know that it's okay. Yeah. Because the parent isn't here to tell you that with their own voice. However, they're there. Yes. And they are comforting you. And if you listen and feel close enough, you can feel them. Absolutely. So it's but yeah, it's hard. Yeah. It is hard work.
It is, yeah. So why is nurturing or healing your inner child important? Well, here's a few reasons. As adults, we walk around carrying wounds from our childhood, whether simple or complex, or from emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. We usually cover up our pain and feelings from childhood because that's what other adults do. And it's true, and that's in quotes, what other adults do. Right. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I think that this happens with adults in a lot of ways. We talk about this, you and I, often about how people just go with what others do. Well, everybody else goes to work from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and, whatever, pushes pencil or, So I guess I have to as well. No, you don't.
No.
You don't have to cover up your inner child wounds. You don't. That's something that I learned early, was that a lot of people stifle like what's happened and they don't talk about it. I talk about it. I've always talked about it because I feel like that helps you to process that it actually did happen to you. And it helps you to let go of those things easier. I will say that the traumatic events that I talk about, the abuse that I suffered, is easier for me to deal with because I've always have talked about it and I have faced that, where a lot of these little things are now coming up to be the problem. The things that I haven't dealt with yet. My mom did a lot of cocaine in front of me when I was a kid. I never dealt with that. Now I'm dealing with those things. Just a lot of those little things, you know, but they equal up and they make you realize, whoa, I never really did let go of this and I need to let go. And my mom's gone, so I can't like physically talk to her like you said. But I get mad, and you've heard me. I get mad. I'm like, sorry, but this is just the way it is. And she hears me and she knows, you know, why I'm upset. But it's important because I have to get it out. Here come the tears.
It is important. That is the work. That's the nurturing. And the tears is like, I think it's the child acknowledging, you know, thank you. I needed that. I needed someone to just put their arms around me. And, you know, you don't have to tell me the reasons and the secrets of the universe. Just let me know it's okay. I'm all right.
Right, exactly.
Like, not everything's not going to be all right. Just, I'm all right.
Right. And it's hard for a lot of people to remember and realize, and even for myself, like when I get into it like that, I have to remind myself that everything that we have been through has happened for a reason.
Yes.
And you have to accept that, and in order to really move on and to let go of those things. Like, some of the things that I went through were hard, but they made me become the person that I am as far as my strengths. Not just my weaknesses, but my strengths as well.
Yes, it's important.
It is. And it's really, like, if you ask us, and in our opinion, it's all planned out already. Like, you make these agreements with people, you know, when you come back here. So, you know, I don't know why we do the things that we do, why we decide to make it this way, but there's a reason.
And these people you are particularly close with, and you go through other lives in different roles with different challenges up against the same souls. I don't want to say up against, just together, you know, living together in some sort of fashion that you have to interact and learn from. And because it's all learning, even pain is learning, you know, happiness is learning. We're all learning all the time.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point about, like, do I have to, you know, because the norm is get up and go work this 9 to 5 or graveyard shift or whatever it is that you have to do. Is this the norm, you know, is this what I have to do because that's what I see everybody doing on an average? No, and you're correct. And this kind of, for me, goes back to the nurturing of the inner child. Because for me, as an adult, and I think we all aspire to, I want to do something I love.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get stuck in life and debt and bills and, you know, responsibility. And then you start bending your standards maybe a little bit and going, okay, I have to join this sort of workforce in order to do, because that's what everybody else is doing and it seems to work, right?
Right.
And it does. And for some people, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think for you and I, it didn't. And I had to go back to my child.
Yes.
And I had to be like, what is it that you, you know, this hasn't changed a lot, parts of it, but what is it that you really want?
Yeah.
You know? And I think the first answer was, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to make you happy? Not doing something I don't want to do.
Right. Not, you know, the alarm every morning to a job
3:30 in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
For 13 years, I was like over it, man. My back and body have paid the price. Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to paint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then paint.
Then paint. Is that all? No. Well, what is it? I want to play music. Well, then play music.
Yeah. So
that doesn't answer all your questions about responsibility and bills and debt and all this stuff. But if you have listened at all to any of these episodes that we've talked about, in your process of setting intentions and manifestations, that you're going to set yourself up, if it's pure and it's good and it's right for you, you're going to set yourself up a path.
Yep.
It's going to be laid out for you.
Yep.
It's just up to you to get connected in order for you to be able to see these signs, in order for your inner child to be able to, or you to be able to relay that to your inner child. That is a sign of what you were asking for.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's so important, not only in dealing with the hard parts of inner child, but I think I grew up with parents that, bless them, they did they did the best they could and based a lot on what they were taught.
Yeah.
And this is all what we do. We do what we're taught.
Yeah.
However, there are some that tend to maybe want to go off different paths and try different ways.
Right.
Some are not so great. Some are really successful and are really great.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we fall. And I think my parents never said, no, don't play music. That's stupid. Or no, don't draw. That's terrible.
Right.
It wasn't like that. It was, but I don't think nurtured or encouraged to be like, I think that you have the potential to do this, like, one day where you don't have to go to a factory. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a trash man or whatever it is,
Yep.
And that's where I sort of decided to be different in my parenting, was to pull out what I saw special about Marina and say, wow, you should really consider this, because holy moly, you have a lot of talent and things going for you in several areas. But so, it's important. It's important because when you're a kid, that's when you dream the most.
Yes.
And why do we grow up and say dreams are no longer valid? Having dreams. No, I don't want to. That part of my inner child will not concede to that mentality. Right. I can't do that.
Absolutely. And it's not just parents that are the problem for this, for not encouraging, because like I've told you this a million.
Teachers.
Yes. Bullies.
Bullies.
Bullies can make such an impression on kids you don't even understand. Like, my mom wanted me to be an actress. She pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was, working on it, going to acting, getting a manager, and I was taking acting at school too. And I got the lead role of Alice in Wonderland. And my backup was older than me. And her friends started bullying me for it, telling me I was a bad actress. I only got the part because, the teacher liked me and all this stuff, right? Do you know what happened after that? My acting went pew. I didn't recognize it at the time because I was a kid. Yeah. But I recognized it as I was an adult, looking back at what happened, how good my acting was up until then. Right. And then what happened afterwards, because I was so self-conscious that I was bad at what I was doing that I thought I was doing it wrong. Right. When all along I was doing it right. So these things, they come from other people. They come from other places. And so we need to teach our kids not to be bullies, that we need to respect everybody. Right. And that's hard. I understand, but we have to teach respect. It comes from the parents, really, and from the other kids, which comes from the parents. It's goes down, trickle down.
It's connected over and over and over.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's a great point.
Yep. Let's see. So inner child work is also important because it teaches us that we weren't wrong or bad for what happened to us, or that we didn't somehow create that insecurity or lack of safety there. That this was somebody else that did this to us, and the inner child issues that we have are not because of what we did to ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't blame ourselves. Is the point. is the whole point there.
You know, and again, it's like, I don't even necessarily, I don't know how to put this, because I look at even my own parents and their lives and the things they've shared with me, and I go, man, they had it worse.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But that's their job.
Yes.
As their path and their life and their movie is they got to nurture their inner child.
Yes.
For what happened to them.
Right.
You know, and I decided for me this time in this life, I wasn't going to take it out on my kids.
Yep.
I wasn't going to do that.
That was the next thing on my list, really, was that this heals ancestral karma. Because okay, so there's things that my mom did to me that I said I will never, ever, ever do that. And I won't. And I haven't. And but there's things that, like, we say and we do that are our parents. Like, my mom was really, really sarcastic, and it didn't bother me. Like, I didn't have a problem with that.
Right.
I actually thought it was funny.
I would have loved it.
Yes, but Marina does not like
No,
that.
I know.
So I had to teach myself to not be sarcastic with her, so that she didn't think that I was, that was addressed at her somehow, because that was just my personality of
Right.
sarcasm. So I had to learn to be a lot more subtle with the sarcasm. We have to think about those things.
Yeah.
We don't want to,
Oh, I know.
necessarily carry those things on. So I usually make these lists like this, right? Of, signs, how we help ourselves or whatever. So this list is signs your inner child needs healing. And I came to you this morning and I said I felt personally attacked by this list, because this list tells me I need to do some personal, inner child work here. Okay. The only one, well, this one I don't really relate too much, but I can see that how this would work for sure, and I've seen this in a lot of people, is that you're highly reactive. When we find ourselves highly reactive and snappy and impatient, and it's a lot of that inner child feeling impatient and misunderstood, like nobody's
Right.
listening
Rejected,
to them.
insecure.
Exactly. So instead, you just become reactive to
Yep.
it and snippy.
Exactly.
Overvaluing independence. That I don't need anyone, never being able to ask for help. I have the worst time asking for help, even for the smallest things, like last night, I think I asked you to, do something for me, or there was get me an ice pack or something. And that may seem simple to most people, and it is simple in our marriage, but I'm
Right.
telling you that in the past, and with other people, with whatever, it's very hard for me. I just get up and get it myself.
Right.
It was just easier than asking somebody else. That's that's a trauma response.
Yeah.
And you have to teach your inner child that it's okay.
Yeah.
You can ask for help, and you don't have to be as independent as you think you may need to be. And that's another one that's been hard for me, is like, I hear it all the time. From my mom, you need to just not be so independent.
Right.
Because that's just how
Right.
you and I both were raised, that there was not really somebody around a lot of the time.
Yeah, we were both kind of latchkey kids. A lot.
So you kind of just learn to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So when you learn, I was my own parent at like 7 years old.
Yeah.
So when you learn that, then that's what you do. You're your parent, so you're independent.
Yeah.
And that's hard to kind of change somebody, but it's not totally healthy to be, over the top about it.
Yeah.
And I get that. Destructive coping behaviors. Examples: shopping, drugs, alcohol, gambling, eating disorders, cheating in relationships, even chronic procrastination.
Yeah.
Man, am I the world's biggest procrastinator,
Right.
or what?
Yeah.
It's very, I can
Yeah,
see
we
how
can
this-
definitely nurture the inner child in a wrong way.
Yeah.
In an unhealthy way. And there's, like you just gave a nice list of,
Yeah.
of all the different ways that you can.
And I'm sure there's a lot more, yeah, for sure. It's just how you cope with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not saying don't indulge in things and,
Yeah.
and enjoy life and its experiences, but don't lose yourself.
Yeah. Mine became food at a very young age, that when I started experiencing the childhood trauma, and then I moved in with my grandparents, and my grandfather always had the most delicious snacks around, and I just was, snacks. I just would shovel them in my face constantly. And nobody told me I couldn't. And so I did. I turned to food. It made me feel better. These what are those? The Keebler cookies. Oh, these are going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
You know, the Hershey's Kisses. These are going to make me feel
jellies.
better. And you know what? They maybe they did for a moment or two. You know, and that's why a lot of people turn to drugs, because it's just like, okay, well, even that's what I did after my mom died. I turned to pills, because even if it's just for a moment and you feel better, it's better than the rest of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, the phrase comfort food alone says it all.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I remember when I beginning of my divorce, you know, I was like, all right, I am free man. And, you know, I'm going to go out, sow my oats, and just mingle and have fun.
Single and ready to mingle.
And I was drinking. I did
that too,
a lot. And I was drinking all night, and I would go and sleep in the parking lot for like 2 hours and think I was going to be on time, and then another employee would be knocking on my window because I fell asleep. You know, and I was like, I can't go on like this.
Yeah.
There's no way I'll be able to keep up with this at this age. I'll be done.
Yeah.
And then it was like, you came along pretty much right at that point, and I was like, thank God, because I just can't keep up with this.
Yeah, and you were trying to mask pain, and I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And because I went through my drinking, partying phase when I was single, too. I think it's just when you're, trying to cover up, that's the way you go, you know, for some of us. That's what we choose. The alcohol, I never was a drinker until my divorce. And then my brother moved in with me, and we were sitting on the couch one night, and we were watching Jim Jeffries, who's a great comedian, but very dirty. And he said something about, we don't drink because it tastes good. We drink because we have to. And that's the editing some of the words out. So I looked at my brother. I was like, he's right. And there was a little bottle of Jaeger in the fridge, Jägermeister, and I went to the fridge and I drank the bottle of Jägermeister, and that was it. I started drinking until, like I was still drinking a lot when we connected. But you do it to cover up the pain. Yeah. Not everybody does, but that's a lot of us. We use that as a coping mechanism. I don't drink anymore, and I'm very thankful. I mean, socially, maybe. Yeah,
I do socially, but I don't need to sit and drink every day.
No.
But, once I kind of got in and started talking to a professional, you know, just going to therapy during my divorce, it helped me a lot. You know, just to kind of realize this was a good move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of those things, like why we stay in the relationships, goes back to our childhood, like the fear of abandonment. That's a big one. They call it attachment wounds. When you have like a parent that maybe was absent or, you know, wasn't there, even if they were there physically, but they weren't there emotionally, you have these attachment wounds. Yeah. And that's kind of what I think we then move into a relationship. And we carry along a lot of those same things because that's what we've learned from childhood. That's why, like they say, a woman might marry her father, or I'm telling you, my first husband was so much like my mother. It was incredible. And it's because it's what you know. Right. And so you find that again. And
that's one of my biggest motivators to sort of break a lot of trauma in my life and having it passed on to, you know, our daughter, because I don't want her selecting somebody down the road to be committed to that's not good for her. Yeah, exactly. That's something that I heard is treat your wife like you want your daughter's husband to treat her. And I think that's how we should all treat our kids. Yeah, I agree. You know, a couple other things on this list of signs your inner child needs healing. Poor emotional and mental health, depression, sleep issues, weight loss or gain, anxiety, unmotivated, not focused. Also, repeating behaviors from relationships. We were just talking about that. Those of us with attachment wounds tend to create attachment patterns, avoiding conflict, being dismissive, being anxious or insecure within the relationship, and fear of abandonment. And I used to do that a lot when I was younger. It's one of the things that I love the most about our relationship is I don't have a fear of abandonment in this relationship. No. But
in my previous relationships, having that, it makes you like not want to voice your opinion,
Right.
not say what you're really feeling because you're afraid that that person might leave.
Right.
And so you just cover up how you're feeling because, you know, okay, well, if I don't talk about it, then they'll stay.
Yeah, because that seemed like a threat that would be thrown out occasionally, you know, at least in my situation, like, you know, well, maybe I should leave. And it's like, you know, that's really the last thing that anybody wants to hear.
Right.
Even in midst of an argument or not an argument.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that.
No. We all say things we don't mean, but usually we end up taking that back. And if you do mean it, then do it. Do you know what I mean? You can't just throw those words around. That's harsh.
No.
You know? So let's see. So how do we heal our inner child? Well, first we have to acknowledge the presence of the inner child to begin with. And this was even hard for me. Like when I first was talking to the therapist about this, I was like, what, inner child? What are you talking about? I mean, you know, you have it, but like to really address it, to really talk to it and, you know, nurture it was a different kind of concept for me. Acknowledging, sorry, I'm all snotty from my crying. Acknowledging your inner child mostly involves recognizing and accepting what caused your pain in the first place. Right. Bring those hurts to the light.
Yeah, and, you know, for any men that are listening to this, there's no shame or loss of machismo because you're acknowledging you have an inner child that may have suffered some trauma and caused you some pain, or you might shed some tears because of that. No.
Yeah.
If you do this, it's a way for humanity to start treating each other then with more respect.
Right. I wish more men were into this. I have a couple that I just have started working with recently, and I love that because I feel like I work with mostly women, and if more men could get on board with this, then I think it would change a lot of things, you know, a lot of the spiritual things like what we're talking about. But I think that that's also a part of why doing this show together is important because you are a man and they can relate to you on a different level than if I'm just a woman sitting here about my spiritual experiences, that's one thing, but being able to relate to a man is you know, better for most men. So let's see on my list. Listen to what your inner child has to say. Listen to the feelings that enter. Okay, so my therapist told me to get a picture of myself when I was around the age of 7. She said typically the most that, like, the things that you absorb the most are before the age of 9. So she said, like, age 7. So I got this picture and I'm looking at it and I'm trying to think of what was life like. What can I say to my inner child at this point? You know, not to make everything okay, because you definitely can't make it okay, but you can nurture it, which is, you know, what we're talking about. But you might notice like anger over like unmet needs, the abandonment issues or rejection issues, insecurity, guilt, shame, anxiety. These are all things that like you might feel from that. You might look at this picture of you and go, wow, you know, I feel these things at that age and I didn't even really realize that I was feeling those things. Yeah. If you can force these feelings back to specific, if you can trace these feelings back to specific events from your childhood, you will start to notice how similar situations in your adult life trigger the same responses.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I have memories earlier than 7 of, you know, I'd say more like kindergarten. Yeah. First grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, that's where most of my suppressed memories are. Like, I think that I really started grasping things and have more memories around 6 or 7. Before that, I remember some things, but like there's a lot that's blocked out that I know, you know, that we do that. And that's another part of this inner child work. Right. One way to connect better to your inner child is to close your eyes and visualize little you and have a dialogue. Ask yourself questions like, what do you need? Or what are you feeling? If little you says something like, I need a hug, then visualize giving yourself little you a hug. That's a very easy way to comfort your inner child. And it may sound strange and it may sound like it won't help, but it really does. It does. It really does. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about our brain and our head. Right. You can't get rid of the memory, but you can change it into, okay, I survived that. I got over that. It's behind me. Right. And I'm going to move on.
Yeah. And again, you don't have to promise your inner child that, oh, the world's going to be perfect from here on out. No, it's within each of these situations that you just comfort yourself and say, look, you're going to be okay one way or another.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Write yourself a letter. Write your inner child a letter. That's always a good idea, because a lot of times I feel like, for me especially, I don't know about our listeners, but if I sit down and I do one of these letters, it becomes automatic writing, which is basically the other side kind of speaking through me, but in this case, my higher self. Right. And actually really getting out what is trapped inside that you may not even realize is trapped inside. So I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Trying to do that. Write a letter to your inner child.
Cool.
Practice setting boundaries. That will also help for people with this kind of issues. We have trouble setting boundaries. For the most part.
For sure.
Practicing self-care and taking care of yourself like you're your own parent. Because somebody has to be, right? So you have to do that. Let's see. Also journal, which I think I kind of mentioned. And channeling. Okay, so remember, working with your inner child is not about unearthing all of the things your parents did wrong and getting angry with them.
No.
It's about processing the emotions that you never processed because of the issues.
Yeah, we got to remember people are infallible and imperfect, and they're going to make mistakes. That's including your parents and their parents and their parents.
Yes.
This is what we're talking about. It's all learned.
Yes.
And we're here to learn. But unfortunately, we have to learn from events that aren't always pleasant.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to take from those events and not repeat them. And that's one of life's biggest challenges and biggest lessons is the things that happened to me, I should not repeat them.
Right.
That is honestly, I've always lived by that. And I think, more than just that, but that is firsthand, you don't like that. Right. Why would you do it to somebody else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to use those things like that. So what are some of the benefits? This is my last list. What are some of the benefits of doing this inner child work? Well, you are accessing those repressed memories that that are holding you back, which may seem like a negative. It is hard work, but once you release them and once you can accept that they're there, then you can let them go.
Yeah.
Being able to feel again after years of being numb. Some people, they block out everything. They don't want relationships. They don't want whatever, they just feel numb.
Yeah.
But actually doing this work, it'll make you feel. I can see that. I've always been a feeler, so, that's just doing it. Gaining personal power and the ability to set boundaries. Mm-hmm. And learning how to better take care of yourself, which is important.
In a general kind of statement too, something to add is it becomes like a lightening of your spirit.
Yeah.
It's like you're releasing a lot of tension and a lot of whatever it is that's been stored in there for so long.
Yeah.
Suppressed or not, remembered or not, whatever, you're releasing that. And it's doing a number of things for you. That is, it's kind of lightening your spirit a little bit.
Right.
You don't feel so heavy.
Right.
And you're doing probably a lot of good things for your health because when you're carrying around that anxiety and this suppressed kind of thing, you're adding a lot of extra tension, which carries over to a physical sense.
Right.
It's starting in your brain as a thought.
Yep.
And a memory, but it's affecting the body that transports your soul around.
Yep, exactly. I had this message that came in now that if to our listeners that are thinking, I don't have this issue. I don't have this inner child issue. I don't even know my inner child or whatever. You're the ones that have to listen to this the most is what I'm feeling because you're suppressing it.
Yeah.
And it is something that we all do have. So the message and suggestion that I got was, first you have to recognize, take something about yourself that you don't like. And you can't say there's nothing. We all have something. You don't have to admit it out loud, whatever it is. Now trace it back. trace it back and see, where did this behavior come from? Okay. One of the things that I dislike the most about myself is my level of worry. I worry about everything. So where'd that come from?
Right.
Well, that came from Kitty, my grandma. My mom was a worrier, but not like my grandma. I'm telling you, I thought that just going out and walking for exercise, I would probably get raped. We lived in one of the safest cities in California.
Yeah.
But it was always, don't go out there. Don't do this.
Yeah,
Don't do
drive
that.
at night.
Yeah, driving at night. Even as an adult, she didn't want me to drive at night. Everything was a worry. And what's funny today on my music mix was Don't Worry, Be Happy. And I used to sing that to her. And she never got it her entire life. And so I don't want to be like that. I don't want to continue that. And so now I can look back and go, well, somebody else did that to you. They made you this worrier, and you can unmake that worry in yourself. And it's hard.
It is hard.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
And it's like every time I have one of those thoughts, I push it out. So I'm hoping that eventually I just won't have those thoughts anymore. Right. And then I'm free. You know, everybody worries, but I can't even tell you, like, the level of worry that my grandma had. You know, right. I mean, she's probably, you don't worry in heaven, but if you could, she would still be, trust me.
Right.
Yeah. That level. And let's see. So, and then last on my list, although there are a lot of benefits to this, but last on this list that I wrote is gaining self-confidence.
Which is huge.
It is. And it's really important because this is our life. Like, people say you only have one life. Well, we believe in reincarnation, so you don't. Right. But you only have this life.
Yes.
And if you're just gonna, piss it away because of things that have happened to you or negative feelings or whatever, like, we all know what kind of person we are, whether we want to admit it or not. We know what kind of person we are. We know where our damage probably came from. And there's no reason that we can't work on fixing it.
Right.
Like, why? What else do you have to do? Oh, I got to go to work. Okay, but you can still work on fixing you.
Yeah.
You can work on how you deal with your coworkers, how you address them, that maybe, you had some trauma in the past and you're snappy about things or whatever, and you just don't address people like that. You're working on yourself every chance you get. It's not about, I have to do this at home on my private time. Right. No, you can work on this at any time. You're just healing what's been done to you by recognizing that it's been done to you.
Yeah, you made a great point that this is, this is this life.
Yep.
And you got to move through it and stuff to do and places to go and people to meet and things to learn. I do believe that your souls carry all of that knowledge from all your lives and the things that have affected you.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go even deeper than this life, you could seek out a past life regression therapist that could put you under, basically, essentially hypnotize you, and you can get into past lives and things that have happened and scarred you as a child or just your life in general at that time.
That's a good point.
And get into some of that because we do carry that. A lot of that isn't accessible to most of us in this life because we're either not aware or just oblivious, we don't care.
Yep.
But this life is what's most important. But there is a way to go and experience some of the past ones. And how much has my soul endured?
Right. Exactly.
Essentially, this is something I really want to do myself too.
Yeah. I do too.
I want to record it. I want to know where was I? What's happened to me? Because sometimes you feel like what you've lived through in this life seems like it's been a lot more than just this life.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
I can feel that for sure. Yep.
But at the same time, as I'm learning to do that with my inner child, it's teaching me to encourage and nurture and embrace our child.
Yes.
And to show her that you have scars, yes, but to pick her up and brush her off.
Yep.
And hold her and say, you're going to be okay.
Yep.
But I don't sugarcoat and say there's not ever going to be anything hard again that happens in your life.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to give the truth in a gentle way, in a loving way. But like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Every
step of the way.
Yep.
And you'll never be alone. So.
And then when she gets older, hopefully she won't have as much inner child work to do because we've nurtured some of it.
Yes, if we could learn to do this as a species and carry this on to our children, we could kind of essentially eliminate a lot of maybe the angst that's going on within humanity and each other. And you know what I mean? Like I see this meme every now and then where it's like the white kid and the black kid, and they're walking down, and they're little, maybe 2, and they're holding hands.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
I don't remember what the phrase is on it, but it's basically like we didn't know any of that difference in color or between us until we were told.
Yeah.
And it's not important. What's important is that we're children.
Right.
And we love one another, and we should be raised to continue that even as adults.
Yep. Absolutely.
It would change a lot of problems in the world.
It would change a lot of problems in the world. It does. It starts with the parents. We have to remember that. And I think that there's a lot of people that think, oh, well, that doesn't really, there's not a lot of that going on. Well, I can tell you that every family has their problems.
Right.
So, there is a lot of that going on.
Right.
We just have to teach our kids, even if you don't know it, even if you don't realize it. Like, I don't think my mom realized that I was raising myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't mean to be neglectful. She just went about her life, And I think some parents might just be oblivious like that. And that's,
It's life. You get wrapped up in it, even your own life.
Yeah.
So being a parent, now you're splitting it, your attention and your focus and everything is now 2, not 1.
Exactly.
So, but yeah.
Well, there you have it. Inner child work and your snotty co-host here. I knew it. I knew it because I've already was feeling it this morning. I'm like, I can't talk about this. And it's not that I can't talk about this because I talk about it a lot. It's just that there's sometimes that, like,
feeling
hormonally.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
The child feels vulnerable.
It does,
because
yeah.
You're exposing, you're actually saying how you really feel.
Yeah. And the thing is that, like, I have to talk about my mom a lot, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. She knows you love her. She's not ashamed of she's proud of what you're doing, She's not ashamed of that by any means, and you know that.
Yeah.
Nor is Kitty. They if anything, I think that's the reason your mom suggested to you to do this podcast was this was part of your work.
Yeah.
To get through what she had essentially done, with parts of her parenting, excuse me.
Yeah.
And you're going to help others.
Yes.
In the course of this. So it's hard. It's really hard,
Yeah. But yes, I am here to help people with what I've been through.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll do. So.
Yeah. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Now get it together.
Yeah, get it together. We're almost done. Almost done. Sorry for the nose blowing and all that. But, I'm emotional. People get it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's life. So, vulnerability.
Well, thanks for that. It was nice. And
Yeah.
I think it's important for you, me, and so many other people out there that may or may not be listening and maybe stumble on this years down the road.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
But, we encourage all of you to take some time and just stop and give your inner child, a hug.
Yes.
Every now and then and just tell yourself it's going to be all right.
Yep.
Life is not easy, but nobody promised you that.
It's not. That's our journey.
Yeah.
It's our journey.
And it's what essentially sculpts us into who we are. We have a role in that, in deciding how we want us to look.
Yeah.
When we're done with sculpting.
Right.
But the sculpting takes a lifetime.
It does. It does. It never ends.
Yeah.
For sure. So.
Well,
hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Before we say goodbye, would you like to share your page?
Yes. So you can find out anything about me on my website, SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com, or send us an email if you want to talk about the show or have show ideas or whatever questions. SpiritualJoneses@gmail.com. That's us.
Very good.
Yay.
And for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, @djonesartcollection for Facebook and Instagram. And for the music, gypsybrown.com for the web, at Gypsy Brown Music for Instagram, and at Gypsy Brown Band for Facebook.
Yay.
And yeah, we're still working.
Yes.
We're still mixing songs, but they're coming along.
Yep.
And things are starting to open, so there's been some murmuring of about possible maybe show somewhere.
Oh, that would be good.
But I don't really know all the exact details, so I'm not going to say nothing right now. But so it could be possible in the near future, but the music, I promise, will be here at some point.
Yep. It's coming soon.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Yay.
We hope everybody got something out of this today.
That we do.
I did, and I know you did.
Yeah. Snotty nose. No, I got a lot out of it, but that too, yeah.
But like we said, go home and just hug your inner child every
Yeah.
now and then. And let your child know it's okay to hug their inner child if you have one.
Exactly.
And everybody have a great week.
Yep.
And until next week.